Welcome, my name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at Fons & Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'll show you how to put together the blocks for the quilt called Washington Pinwheels. If you'd like to purchase this pattern, you can visit our website and find it there. Okay, we're going to be working with 10-inch pre-cut squares, and they're in a great variety of kind of cardinal and gold with a chocolate brown, and they were kind of a reproduction fabric prints. And then we're going to be putting a light fabric with kind of a gold circle or a dot to it, and those are going to be the centers of all of our blocks. So we have one fabric consistent in the centers of each of our blocks. It holds it all together. Now, in order to use the 10-inch squares, we are going to be cutting them into pieces. And again, some people may say, why are you going to take 10-inch squares and cut them up? Well, you saw the great variety, and you see the great variety of the golds and the reds and the chocolate browns in this quilt. And we can get the best variety when we use pre-cuts because you get a little bit from each of the fabrics in the line. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be cutting these into all the shapes that we need. There are, I believe, 18 reds, 18 golds, and 18 browns. And we're going to be cutting each of those prints into 5-inch squares to begin. So we're going to cut down through the center and divide it. We're going to divide the other direction also at 5, so we get squares. And then we are going to be cutting each of those squares in half diagonally. Now, if you haven't worked with bias edges before, this would be a place that you're going to get a lot of experience, because by cutting them diagonally from corner to corner, we're going to be having a lot of bias edges. Just cut the one. You would go ahead and cut all of them. And you'll want to stack, when you pick up 4 that are alike, as I'm doing here, keep those together because you're going to be using them within one block. So that's a little tip on staying organized. Then you're going to be joining, for instance, in this quilt, the chocolate brown always appears in the very center of the quilt block. I've got a block here on the sewing center. You can see that light center. The chocolate brown is in the next round with the triangles, and then we'll deal with the gold and the reds on the outer. But we've got to create that center piece first. So it looks like this, commonly known as a square and a square or a diamond square. In order to create that, we are going to be using that center, consistent gold, light colored center, and then we can go ahead and use the 4 matching brown fabrics that we cut. Now remember that you have bias edges on the short legs of these, so you're going to want to be very careful and gentle with them when you're handling them. What we want to do is we want to add these 2 pieces, opposing sides to this, and you'll see that there's little triangles that hang off the ends. Now you could fold and find the center, but we also have a tool that you can use to more precisely do your patchwork. So if you were to take, and I'm going to stack 2 at once, so I can cut down through both of them. There is a set of triangle trimmers that have been devised just for this purpose, and you can see that there's a diagram on each of them and how to use them. And the blue has a square and then a triangle added, and that's what we're going to be adding. And so this is the one that we want to use for our trimming at this point. What we're going to do is create an engineered corner. Now the tool sometimes is larger than your triangle, sometimes smaller, but it still works in the same way. You take the long leg of your triangle, match it with the longest leg of the tool, slide it down into the corner. Let me rotate this a little so the camera can catch it a little better. And you slide it all the way out, and then just take the rotary cutter and just take off the very tip. So you're just taking off little triangles. It's a really quick punch, and you get really good at it. You could stack up 4 or even maybe 8 at once if your rotary cutter is nice and sharp, and you're just taking off those little triangles. Now those are for the first 2 that we're going to add. I told you it comes as a set of 2, and so I'm going to go ahead and cut the second 2 using the second tool, which is pink. And when we get to adding those, you'll notice that the angle is different, but it's the perfect angle we need for adding the second set. So in this process, blue first, pink second. So we'll take those away. And now we will take this over to the sewing machine, and we can add these triangles to the outer, and you'll notice that they're the right length. They match up against my square now, so I know where to place them, and I don't worry about shifting one direction or the other, but they match. So let's take them to the sewing machine. Again, remember to be very careful with your triangles. They are bias edges, so we don't want them to stretch and have a distorted block. And use your best 1/4 inch seaming. You would use a neutral color thread on a project like this. I'm using red so that it's more visible to the camera. And the second side. And then you'll notice when I finish and open this out that we'll have the perfect placement then for our next 2 triangles that have been trimmed. Okay, I'm going to open this out. And how I'm gently just finger pressing here for now for the camera, you would take this to the iron and get it nice and precise. But I'm not trying to stretch anything, I'm just taking it open to the seam very gently. And that's the first half. Now, remember how we trimmed that second 2 with a pink triangle trimmers? Now when I lay this on here, it matches up with the angles of those triangles here, and it will match with the angle of the triangles I've added to these sides. Oops, right sides together here. And so then I can stitch a 1/4 inch each side. And then we would have this, we'll go back to this one that we had. Here is where our second 2 were added, open it up, and we have the center of our block constructed. Now we need to deal with these outer corners that are gold and red. Remember how we cut down through all of our 10-inch squares? We cut them into 5s, and then we cut them diagonally in both directions. So that means you created a lot of red and gold triangles, such as this. What we need to create, we'll lay it out here, are these outer corners. And you'll notice that the red and the gold have a specific placement. If I were to construct a block that looked like this for an outer corner, then my alternating red and gold wouldn't be correct. So you need to follow your pattern instructions for the color placement to get it correct. Again, thinking bias edges here, you do need to piece this right sides together, and you need to seam along here. So 1/4 inch seam, and then the trick on this one I'm going to tell you is that you've got this seam, when you go to put the blocks on, this seam is going to come into this intersection, which is very thick. And in order to reduce that bulk, you'll notice I've done something different. Instead of pressing seam allowances to one direction, I've pressed them open very gently. That reduces the bulk so that I can add these in the same manner. These again can be added and trimmed using your triangle trimmers, so you get to use them twice in the same project. The first 2 sides you add, use the blue. The second 2 sides you add to the block, use the pink one. And then you will get a block seamed like this, how it's pressed open here, nice flat seams, and your intersections will be reduced in bulk. You're going to make all of the blocks for the Quilt Washington Pinwheel and create your own. For more of our videos, visit our website. Thanks for joining me today.